Hey everybody, thanks for joining us this morning. We're just going to kind of hang tight for a couple of minutes to let a few people join and give them time to connect up and stuff like that. But we'll get started in a few minutes. I think in the interim would be great to to meet you all in the chat and learn a bit more about who you are and where you work. We're going to go through sort of two presentations in relatively short order today, and then we'll have plenty of time at the end for questions. So please use the chat to, as I say, introduce yourself, but make sure you're asking questions throughout. Keen to keep this as relevant for you as possible. But yeah, we'll just hang tight for a minute or two just whilst people start to kind of trickle in. For those of you just joining, so I'm Tom, I'm the CEO over at Pinpoint, and we've got Peter Byrne with us today. Peter, do you want to introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Hi, everyone. I'm Peter. I'm one of the recruitment business partners with Google. I've been with Google for just over 2 years now. And overall, I've spent about 7 years, 7-8 years in recruiting.
Great. Thanks, Peter. So yeah, so those of you that are just trickling in, we're going to hang tight until about 3 or 4 minutes past just to make sure everybody's got plenty of time to trickle in, get connected and set up and ready to go. But as I said previously, we're going to start off with a great presentation from Peter on candidate experience, kind of leveraging a lot of the lessons he's learned at Google and in his own experience elsewhere. I'll then do a sort of brief summary of that and talk about how you can translate some of those lessons into your own experiences. And then we're going to take a whole bunch of questions. We're very fortunate to have had a great deal of questions come through from those of you that signed up online. But beyond that, please do use the question and answer section in your Zoom chat and stuff like that to ask us relevant questions. Keen to make sure that you can kind of leverage Peter's experience as best as possible, and we can kind of point you in the right direction of useful resources. So we'll get going in just a couple of minutes. But yeah, thank you, Catherine and Yandy, for introducing yourselves. We'd love to kind of learn more about the rest of the audience. And we'll get started very, very shortly. Cool. So I think it's 3 minutes past now. I think that's given people plenty of time to connect. So I think appreciate you all joining us this morning. Thank you very, very much, and kind of looking forward to sharing some insights with you this morning. I think what I'll do is hand straight over to Peter from Google, and Peter, you can crack on with your presentation.
Perfect. Thanks so much there, Tom. Yep. Hi, everyone. Again, for those who just joined, missed the intro there. So I'm Peter. I'm one of the recruitment business partners here at Google, based in Dublin, Ireland. I've been recruiting for just over 7 years now. Previously worked with Amazon, and before that worked in agency recruitment based around the pharmaceutical sector. So this presentation is really going to be showing a bit more around how we look at candidate experience from Google's side, and be able to talk more around some of the learnings that we've had from there as well, and how we look at it. So obviously candidate experience is top of mind for everyone, and is a very sought after topic. So Google is very data driven as a company. And before doing anything, we make sure we have the evidence and research to back it up. So really focusing on sort of why does it matter? And we've done a lot of studies in sort of 2017 for different role types, be them technical and non-technical. While this is quite Google specific, there is a lot of key takeaways for all companies and industries that we'll be able to look at and go through here. So why candidate experience? So this is the study I just mentioned. There's a major study done back in 2017 by our staffing effectiveness team. Essentially, it showed that 52% of 2019 hires were previously rejected from Google. And this just hones in candidate experience, because anyone that we reject today could be hired in, in a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is down the line. And yeah, as you said, 52%, that is an astronomically high number, and it's something that really resonates with us. Higher acceptance rates, those with positive experience are, as it shows, 28% more likely to accept an offer, 48% more likely to accept with a competing offer. These points here are huge. So for Google, this is big. We feel we are a great company, but there are a lot of other really great companies, and we're fighting for top talent just like anyone else. And therefore, making sure we provide a great candidate experience and have those higher acceptance rates is really important. For us, you look at the tech industry as a whole, and tech is scrapping for talent. So the Google brand, whilst it is fantastic, we have it there in the background, it doesn't bring us as much help as maybe it used to with all these other companies, your Facebooks, your Amazons, your TikToks, your LinkedIn's and such. So we really do have to focus on that candidate experience and fight for that top talent, just like a lot of the other tech companies are now. And this really impacts on our future pipelines. So if we look at candidate experience, if those candidates who did not receive an offer but had a positive candidate experience are twice as likely to say they would reapply to Google. And candidates with a positive experience are 3 times more likely to encourage their friends to apply. And this really just goes through that word of mouth. And I'll go through that in the next slide. But word of mouth side to it is really important. We've all been in those situations where people are talking about, with their friends, how they got on with one company, or how they experienced hiring processes. And especially if you look at 52% of hires that were rejected, then 52% of the hires that came through that year, it just goes to show that if people have bad candidate experiences, then we're not hiring half of our hiring that year. So it's so important that we keep that as high as possible to make sure that get those likelihoods of reapplications. People are talking about, I didn't have I had a great experience, and you really want to give it a go to a friend. Really encourage that sort of word of mouth. And that's really, as I said, what this slide goes into. So the power of word of mouth is exponential. Those with good experiences might tell 15 of their friends. People with bad experiences might tell 24 of their friends. So there's a disproportionate, and you want to put that into your favor. People just typically, human nature is to talk in the gossip side of where things went bad. And so you really want to be looking at how we can minimize that and really boost that good experience so it works in our favor. Failure to deliver positive experience just may result in candidates developing and spreading that negative view of the organization in both their professional or social networks. It can really be discouraging to other potential candidates applying. I've seen it myself when I've been on LinkedIn and people slating other companies, whoever they are, but they'll put on what their experience is, but you very rarely see someone sharing what is a good experience. And so it's really important that we look at what that power of word of mouth is and try and put it into our favor as much as possible. With brand perception as well, research indicates, and these are, as I said, these are Google studies done. So research has indicated that candidates are 38% less likely to use a product or a service as a result of a poor application or experience. So for something like us with Google, we really want to make sure that perception of us is as high as possible, and it starts with that candidate experience. People have that good experience coming through, they're more likely to use products and services, and and that brings through company growth and stuff. Given the scope and breadth of Google product and service offerings, this is huge, absolutely huge. Customer advocacy and loyalty is a consideration in the design and execution of Google's hiring experience, and staffing teams must be made aware of they're the owners, with the owners of Google's brand to candidates. This goes wide to every company. As recruiters, as staffing business partners, we are that first voice, or that first line of what someone's perception is going to be of that business. And it's so important that we need to be aware of that. We need to be aware of the impact that we can have on our brand as a company, and we take that into consideration whenever we're speaking. We have to be holding that to some of the highest there. So what I'll go through next, essentially, is we'll look at, I say, some of the basics, but essentially every interaction is a moment to represent the Google brand. And here we're just going to focus on that importance of creating a wow experience for not just candidate side, but for our clients as well, for our hiring managers. It's not just about having respect for candidates, but the empathy, especially in a time like now. Empathy is one of the most powerful tools we can use in our arsenal as recruiters. So the basics is exactly that. So what do candidates want? So time and time again, we see communication come through. We regularly update each candidate on how they're progressing in the process, even if it's just to tell them a no, update. It can be something as simple as setting scheduled emails. Time management for me as a recruiter personally, but I know across Google that we have trainings, sessions given on time management and calendar management, because candidate experience can be made so much easier by giving the answers before the question comes and having those expectations set, that if you're not going to get an answer by the end of the week and you've promised the candidate that you'll feed back to them, just set the you can set a scheduled send, a delayed send of an email, just so you know that they're going to get that. And you looking at calendars, as I said, for me, I think that calendar management has been one of the most powerful tools. Just being able to say that at the end of my day, I've got an hour where I'm going to look at, okay, who do I need to update? What emails do I need to send? It can even be, I say generic, but the sort of canned response of an email, but at least letting someone know exactly what's happening will appreciate it to no end. That information piece around education, it's about educating and setting expectations with our candidates. For us in Google, we help candidates understand Google's hiring process by explaining it in plain language. None of this in internal jargon. Hiring processes can be complicated enough, and they can be long as well. There are candidates going through Google hiring processes where it can take 3-4 months. So if we set those expectations at the start, then it just breeds that experience straight away. They're aware that this first interview process might take a month, and then we'll probably get some feedback at the end of that. So if they know that, you're not sat there twiddling thumbs. We all have that nervous energy after an interview, wondering how it went, rethinking it. If you know early on that it could take a month to get feedback, then that nervous energy goes away, and they'll just look, occasionally for the email or the phone call, whatever it may be. But it really just helps set the mood and put anxiety to one side that can come through with these. We do a lot of preparation as well, a lot around preparation. So it can be very time consuming. If you're looking at setting preparation for hundreds of people. So we try and look at how can we standardize some of the prep. So we have preparation documents and prep guides that we share. There's external blogs and YouTube videos as well. If you type in YouTube like tech hiring into Google, or how to pass coding interviews, or different positions, you'll see that there'll be a short video. All of these can be popped into an email and shared with candidates, which just elevates how their experience is and elevates that preparation. And really, realistically, it's whilst there's the time commitment at the start, setting these things up saves so much time as you go through, and it becomes quite a minimal effort on your side. Just to send a blanket email with the prep docs, the guides, and YouTube videos straight out. And we focus on candidates, focus on them. We give candidates a chance to learn about Google and the role. We're having those conversations. Something for me that I think personally is very important is that when you're going through an interview process, it's not just about us interviewing candidate, but it really has to be as well the candidate interviewing us. It's a two-way street with finding a job. It can't just be, yes, you're good, we want you, here's an offer. Have to look at, okay, are we really the right match for you? Is this role really for you? Is this going to help you in terms of career aspirations? Is this right for your personal situation? Does this motivate you to get out of bed and come and do the job that you want to do? And this comes through especially at the end when we're rejecting people. Rejection is a horrible thing that I don't think any recruiter realistically enjoys doing. It's nasty parts of the job. But if we can be honest with feedback and try to help identify where else, fortunately Google, a bigger company, we can identify where else there may be a bit better fit. But even just sort of sharing that advice and having that personal touch, you haven't unfortunately passed on let's say coding, but I think if you looked at this part of your coding language, you're looking at algorithms, if you focused on that, that's where the improvement needs to be made in 12 months time. We'll revisit. I think that's where you would have taken that learning and bring you through. Just switching that slight to the personal touch is so important. And this is really focused on emphasizing the importance of keeping experience first mindset throughout the whole process. Every interaction we have should lead to a positive impression on candidates, our hiring managers, and any sort of partners. Again, I suppose looking at it from the Google side, we have partners from scheduling teams and groups that help filter through online applications and stuff. But really, we want to be looking at that experience first mindset throughout the whole process. It's such a personal experience, and it's not just about what I was saying earlier. Making sure that you send those no updates, but it's about how you make that candidate feel. How do they actually feel when they receive something like that? How do they feel with the little personal notes and touches? It's so important when we're looking at this, that we're really emphasizing on the importance of keeping that experience first mindset throughout the whole of the hiring process. And then we go through that end-to-end engagement side. So I suppose there are elements where it's a bit different from the Google side, or we do have that tech, but we look at how we can engage teams. And this comes really useful for us when we think candidate experience, because if we have interviewers engaged, so the questions they're asked are really high quality. They're relevant for the role. They were challenging, but obviously in a good way. They're really building out that thought process, making sure the interviewers are engaged throughout, easy to understand. They're not, again, using, as we said before, avoiding all that internal jargon nonsense. Just really making sure things are easy to understand, professional. They're able to put the candidate at ease at the start. They're using some empathy as well. If they notice the candidate being nervous, saying, look, do you want to go grab a glass of water? We can take a break here. It's tiring. Google interviews can go on for 4 hours, so it can be quite long days. So really just engaging your interviewers. And we have trainings, which I'll go through a bit later, with our interviewers, really help bring through that engagement. Our coordinators, again, there's a life of luxury in this sense, where we have recruitment coordinators, which help in terms of scheduling our interviews, but they also get targeted with experience metrics as well. I'll go through the sort of tracking, measuring side in the next slide. But we look at all our teams as we come through. How is the experience, as I said earlier, throughout the whole process? And if we think about referrals, we're driven not just by experience of candidates coming through, but we're also looking at the people that refer in. If better experience that they have using a similar point of view, is there timely communication to the referrer? Is there transparency? If you're referring a friend in, realistically, or if someone else in the business is referring a friend in, they're kind of putting their neck on the line, saying to that friend, yeah, trust me, look, apply, it's a great company to work for. If that friend has like a terrible experience, or you refer somebody in and that you don't hear anything back, and you just find out rejected, you're not going to be as inclined to refer people through. And referrals is a huge part to building a business, because you've got the people that know the environment, you've got the people that will know, realistically, they'll know a bit more around the role as well. So if you can drive referrals and just breed that experience, looking at each at referrers as well, and having experience for them top of mind, it will just build the referrals coming through. For us within Google, we have like 6 to 8 different partners in a recruiting process. So it is important from that side. We look at how we keep everyone engaged and moving in the same direction. Appreciate there's not every company can have that many partners, but the principle is there, sound, it's the same. It's just looking at the experience and the engagement for everyone that's involved. Trust as well. So it says here about fair and trustworthy experience, and I think there's so much in the news around data and privacy, and we really, for us, protecting that kind of privacy is, we earn trust by protecting the information they disclose to us through the process, and we only share it with relevant hiring decision makers. So again, if you build that empathy, and we're building that trust throughout the process, and someone decides to share something very personal, it can even be that point of reminding them of, look, this will stay between us. This is a partnership. We're working through this together. We both want to look at what's best for you in terms of onboarding, or in terms of bringing you through. Really building that trust and not breaking it, really only sharing it where absolutely necessary and relevant to the hiring decision makers, not sharing it to everyone that's there, but really keeping that and just making sure that the candidate knows as well, knows what's relevant and what needs to be shared. We're very set on these things, so we really look at how we deliver a fair and consistent experience between candidates. So we push our clients or our hiring managers to really challenge their own biases and to make sure that questions are thoughtful and relevant to understanding the skills and abilities needed for the role. You know, it's not always about years of experience, whatever it may be, but it's really looking and understanding where those skills and the abilities are coming through and stretching that hat and understanding, you know, what areas. You know, it's something we've done recently was a skills gap analysis within the group, and it really helped build out for us in a certain department, look at how we're hiring. You know, do we really need SQL, or if we used other coding languages, would that be more useful? You know, where's the gap and where can we have a bit more flexibility? And that really helps bring through that experience, because we can always talk through some of these things with candidates and explain, again, you know, having that transparency of sharing. This is what we're thinking, this is what we're doing. We haven't made the decision, but you know, bringing them sort of in and involved in the process really just builds that trust and improves that candidate experience. For me, I just think like a recruiter's role is really at its core, it's about relationships. You know, some tips, I suppose, or where I look at how to create a strong rapport with candidates and looking at leading with the impact the candidate has on the team. Again, you know, it's about showing them we value them. Yeah, highlighting this is what the impact will be. You know, that can be such a wow experience. If you join us, this is the impact that you're going to have. You know, it's that wow, that surprise, that delight that can come through. You're putting yourself back in candidates' shoes. I harped on about it, but I do really feel empathy is one of the biggest tools that we have as recruiters. We've all been back in those situations. You know, I was only sat in the application chair for Google two and a half years ago. Realistically, it's not that long, especially considering the last year spent indoors essentially. But really just, you know, putting that empathy back into the process. I was in this position. I know how nervous it can be. These are the things that helped me, you know, showing those personal experience and personal touches. And that comes through with the clarity. You know, providing those updates and clarity, check in, you know, when it's appropriate. Feel free to ask, say, you know, to your candidates that it could take a month for us to get any feedback. Are you happy with me to update you just once a week with an email to let you know news or no news, or do you just want me to send you an email when I find something? You know, give them the power back in that sense, and allow them a bit of control. You know, it can be a complete game changer. And if they say, yeah, look, don't worry about it, just message me when you know, then fantastic. That's a time saver for us, and we still know that they're going to have a great experience because it's what they'd rather. You know, similarly, you know, if they want that email every week, then it's something that's a simple automated email to send that can just be spit out, and at least they're going to be kept in the loop. And then we know at, I don't know, the end of the month, we're going to get some feedback and set that time up. But it's if you can provide those updates and clarity and give them a bit more of the power and the option for how they like it, it can be such a good tool to use in terms of candidate experience. So as I said earlier, we look at the tracking and measuring side to how we look at candidate experience with Google. So as I said at the start, Google is so very, very data driven as a business. It's what we do, it's who we are. And so for us, surveys are sent to all candidates who interviewed, and this gets sent 2 weeks after their application is closed. That can be if they're offered the job or even rejected. And we make sure to split that data to get a more granular understanding of our performance and where we can make improvements. So we look at experience for everyone involved in the hiring process, and that includes, again, referred candidates. You know, we look at everyone across. So if someone is putting themselves out there, to refer that family or friend into a position, it's important again that we keep them updated, and a good referrer experience leads to more referrals. So we really push in and look to understand those data parts. We have SLAs in place to ensure we're contacting candidates in a timely manner. So again, everything with us is geared towards that positive experience. The Google interview process can take 3-4 months, as I said earlier. So it's important that we're moving things through as fast as can. We want to be trying to get in touch with those candidates. If it's an online application, really want to be trying to reach out to them within the first 7 days, maximum. If it's refer candidates, can we try and get through to them a bit quicker? But really, just there's nothing worse than when you're sat there waiting for a response, and you sit there. And then I had it recent, about a year ago, where I'd made applications before joining Google, and a year and a half after I made an application, I got an email to say, sorry, but you weren't moving forward. Like, well, yeah, no surprises there. It's been so long. But you get it on the other side of the fence, where they're like, I've seen your application, we now like to bring you in. Like, no, and it just breeds that experience. Like, you haven't reached out to me, why? No. So it's so important that we look at how we can move things forward. While we can move our process is a bit quicker in terms of competing offers, ultimately we can't make hiring decisions in a day for Google anyway, and that's without missing key steps. It's really important for us that we keep in mind, and we set the candidate and the hiring manager expectations about timing, and really provide that transparency into why we set it up this way, that everyone's sort of aware, everyone knows what to expect, and there's no surprises along the way. And it's just so ingrained with us here at Google. We're measured across multiple areas to better understand what we're doing well and what we need to improve on, and that comes across the candidate life cycle. So as I said, we look at data, and we anonymize our tracking of a candidate experience. I can check my own personal results, for example. Every recruiter can understand, are we trending up? Do we have, say, 90%, 80%, candidate experience positive? Is it lower? What do the comments say? What do we need to improve? It's important to consider it's not only what we achieve as an OA. For me, recruitment can be such a numbers driven to get the OA that we can forget how we go about it. And I think it's important that if we remember the back end of everything, how we're going about getting that OA, then that will just build into our future, and you'll get the more applications, you'll get those positive experiences, you'll get the reapplications in the future. And it really is about not to just focus on the achievement at the end of the day, but how we go about getting to it. For us, we aim for 90% or better positive results for candidate experience, but really that's just the beginning of what experience can be. We look at the numerical data. So as I said, I can look at my numerical data, and again, of course, it's all anonymized, but I can know that say 90%, 95% is my candidate experience. But then I can look into the qualitative side, because part of that survey we send is, are you happy? It's worded in different ways, and then what could be improved and what went well. And looking into that granular data allows us to pick out trends and patterns, or really just sort of nail down where we need to improve our experience coming through. That goes quite nicely into some training and communication pieces, which I mentioned earlier with interviewers as well. So experience, I know we're here talking experience, so it might sound a bit obvious, but we do a lot of experience training. So it's part of the onboarding process for recruiters here. They go through candidate experience training. It's done as refreshers as well. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you've been in that bit in recruitment 1 year to 10 years. It's refreshers can be some of the most useful things, and just bringing it back to the basics and saying, okay, right, this was the training, this is what I can take out from it again, and let's move it forward. I'm fortunate enough that I sit on the candidate experience project group within Google, where we do a lot of work in this space and look at what trainings, what's the content. No point in getting people through and having them eat lemons in that sense of running through things they don't know, but it needs to be impactful again. And with this, we can run in internal courses, so it's not just set for us. If other people want to understand what the candidate experience is like, then we can look at how we can bring that through. And people are coached and taught in terms of facilitation, so it really becomes that sort of expert level, and being able to coach them through. The facilitation of these things are done by people that have consistently high candidate experience scores in recruitment. So you're learning from the people that are the best in the field at this within the business, and the tips and tricks that we have collectively. Automation. This is something that's quite an interesting point, and I think where you can automate, it will just help improve that candidate experience more, because it makes it as efficient as possible. Removing manual tasks where possible, looking at things like email templates, provides consistency, the scheduled sends that I've been talking about, having those auto reminders of, in your calendar, check or run through emails, candidates to be rejected on this day and candidates to move forward to the next steps on this day. Having that set out, it's where we can automate. Whilst there's a time commitment at the start, if you need to create that PDF document, create that YouTube video, create that canned email, which will just go out, and what you need to do is change the name at the top and maybe the role in there. Whilst they take a bit of time to get there at the start, the time it saves us throughout really allows us to go back in and look at how we can improve candidate experience with more personal touches. If it's having video calls at the moment, or phone calls with certain candidates, but really just allows us to invest our time that bit smarter and easier as well. We do have teams of experts within the business, which again is useful. So candidate experience champs are groups of people with consistently high experience feedback scores, and they're the point of reference. So I suppose it sounds a bit egotistical now I say it out loud, but I sit into this candidate experience group, and we're continuously available to help with different situations. So it's not just about going to the managers and how do I do this, but it's about looking at other people as recruiters and pulling on those experience, and looking at people that have those high experience scores and how we can pull on their abilities. We work as a project group to look at how we can innovate and improve experience for anyone in the Google interview process. One of the big things we took on recently was with the virtual onboarding, bringing people that are onboarding virtually together, and having a bit more of a group, gamifying some things and allowing people to get to know each other more. Whereas normally you might bump into each other, have like a glass of water or coffee or whatever it may be. That's just not options when working from home. So it's looking at taking those people, bringing them into a virtual environment and introducing them, and sharing fun facts or whatever it may be. But trying to think of that experience throughout, and even when people on board too. and really, as I said, I suppose looking at the comments and the qualitative data and thinking, okay, as a team, what we do is we provide updates, quarterly updates. We look at trends, correlations, patterns, and look at what corrective actions can we take. And it's not about a slap on the wrist or anything like that, but it's advising wider groups on things that we can do and things that can be done better. And then, as I said earlier, we have the interview training. So this is really part of the engagement side that we try to drill up. The more engaged interviewers are, the better they interview, the better the candidate experience is. We invest so much time in cultivating a really in-depth interview training. It's delivered by recruiters as well, because we interview people on a daily basis. We have that ability, I suppose, to expect the unexpected, to understand where maybe some trends. We really spend so much time in cultivating such an in-depth interview training. And we want to look at how we can develop the EQ of our interviewers around this. Research shows that candidates really valuable and engaged interviewer. Asking the right questions, challenging. There's nothing worse than when you're in an interview, be it on the phone or face to face, and you can tell they've just lost interest. And we really look at how we can develop the EQ and make sure that they can see that we're engaged. We might be needing to type, as we interview. A lot of companies do it. They try to type through as the interview goes on and record sort of the conversation that's being said, but still being able to switch that focus and have that engagement. It's such a big part of candidate experience. Interviewer training is a big focus. It's for us, it's done in a couple of different parts, and you need to be in Google at least 6 months. Doesn't matter if you're a director, if you've interviewed loads in the past for another company. We focus on the experience within Google and what we want to cultivate, and we make sure that there's a longevity in that. And we can see trends. I will always ask candidates how they felt their interview was, how they felt the interviewer was, what their experience was like. Do they feel the questions were engaging? I push a lot to get and understand the interviewer feedback, and we share that feedback. I'll always sit down with everyone that interviewed after and share some of the feedbacks that come through. It's not that we're selecting out interviewers because of bad experience scores or anything like that. But we offer feedback to our interviewers to really just, again, build the improvement and keep candidate experience top of mind, making sure we're engaging with everyone involved in the interview process. We might be, as recruiters, the first face and a continued face through the interview process. But again, I'm sure we've all been there when candidates had a bad interview experience, and whilst they interviewed well, they go like, no, I don't want to work for this company. I don't want to do that. If we just make sure that we get our interviewers engaged and really understand that they are so involved in the process and they're such an integral part, and they take that experience piece to heart, and that's done a lot by training with us. And we have, I suppose, something slightly different, which is a great tool regardless of the size of the company. We have a champions program. Now that champions program is essentially designed to connect Google champions with external candidates to discuss common concerns or objections. So, a big one we get here in Ireland is about housing. I think it's quite well known, if people look into it, that it's difficult to find affordable housing in Dublin at the moment. So we have a lot around champions that are just able to run through any sort of questions and concerns, be it on that or be it about different areas within Google or different jobs. But we make sure these people we do our best to make sure that these people are removed from the team they're interviewing in and whatnot, to really make it sort of an objective conversation, because people don't always tell recruiters everything. People won't tell hiring manager stuff, so we look at how can we bring these conversations to be truly objective and just helpful. And that has been something that's been huge for us and really useful. It's used a lot in the tech group for recruitment. And you'd be paired with candidates at different stages of the application process, and maybe asked to talk through their questions and concerns with that, autonomy of work, career trajectory, culture, collaboration, work-life balance. Working remotely is a big one at the moment. It just allows people to share unique experiences, learn more about Google, whilst not feel that what they're being say will be used through the interview process. Talent mark is highly competitive, and Googlers, anyone really, like our employees, sorry, are our biggest competitive advantage. We make connections between candidates and enthusiastic people in the business, and we've seen a genuine increase in offer accepts with this, where it's been concerns or whatever it has been. We've genuinely seen an increase on these come through. So that's a big part. So these are, I suppose, just some of the sort of things that we do within Google, from trainings and how we track and measure, and I suppose a couple of tips there into the basics. So thank you very much there, everyone. I hope that was helpful and useful in terms of sharing some insights into how we look at things here with Google.
Awesome, thank you, Peter. I think, yeah, really great to kind of go through all of that, and always enjoy listening and learning from Peter and the team at Google on some of the things they're doing. I think what I'm going to do real quick is just share my screen, if that's cool, and we've kind of got another presentation to run you all through. What I'm going to do though is not go through this in finite detail today, just conscious of time. I want to make sure we get to the questions that we had submitted before the thing, and some of the questions that are starting to come through in the chat now, which is very much appreciated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip through all of this just to the end. We'll do the Q&A, and then basically what we've got here is a short presentation kind of translating some of the awesome lessons and experience Peter's just run us through into sort of very easy to implement and actionable things you can do for your business. I think we'll all kind of hold Google up there as sort of world-class and something to shoot for in terms of candidate experience. But as Peter kind of referenced throughout, some of the environmental situations they're dealing with, and the brand and the candidate experience and the volume, means oftentimes that they are aspirational goals rather than super trivial things you can implement in your own business. So this presentation will hopefully help you kind of go through that, but I'm just going to skip through this right to the end, and Peter and I can start tackling some questions. And this presentation, alongside a whole bunch of other things, will be included in the follow-up email that all of you will get sent. And so please feel free to kind of reach out and ask specific questions on that front as well. I think we have been submitted a whole bunch of sort of very topical questions in the pre-registration. I do want to kind of prioritize live ones though. And so Peter, can we just kind of start with you? I think Catherine, as you were going through some of the training and communication pieces of your presentation, asked about how frequently you guys are doing refresher training and kind of keep topping that up with your teams.
Yeah, so the refresher training side's quite unique in the sense of it's not mandatory. Sure. So we offer it out to anyone that wants to do it. It doesn't matter if you've just done the interview training to start with, 6 months later you want to do a refresh. Where we would maybe focus on it a bit more is where we see someone's candidate experience dipping, and we would then be advising, like, okay, even if it's as a collective team, and we can silo it so someone doesn't feel individualized or anything like that, we silo it and say, okay, we want to do a quick 15-30 minute refresh on interview training. So it wouldn't be that it would be sort of a specific after 8 months you're going to do it again, and then after 2 years we'll do it again. It's very much looked at individualized based on candidate experience scores, as well as if someone just wants to come through and do it again.
Cool, makes sense. I think sort of trying to identify themes in some of the questions that came through, I think we had a fair few people ask questions about kind of talent pipelining and how to offer a great candidate experience to people that you're rejecting today, but sort of hoping to re-engage with tomorrow, and also sort of what you're doing on an ongoing basis to talk to that. So maybe you can talk to that through the lens of Google Eye. How, if at all, are you keeping people engaged once you've rejected them? Are you sending them communication? Are you keeping them abreast of your employer brand? What does that look like?
Yeah, so that's, you know, it will look different to different groups, I suppose. Whereas if we look at things from maybe a leadership side, where we're looking at directors and such, then there's a lot more I suppose, engagement in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's a smaller pool of people, and you know, keeping that brand and experience and communication there is so high. We looked at it from a mass side, where we're looking at sort of associates and manager groups. It's kind of setting expectations at the rejection point. So I wouldn't be emailing or updating every single person that I've rejected, because I just never get any work done if I had to constantly update people that weren't coming through.
Sure.
Where we look at it is sharing that insight of, okay, this is what we're doing as a business. This is what the feedback was. I would imagine that in maybe 6 months' time, you may have improved in these areas that we notified as needed to be better, and we can sync then. So it's being quite specific really with your time in this, and you're never going to be able to please everyone. We want to try and please the masses, but it's just being quite honest and thoughtful with your time and saying, okay, these people, you know, I think are going to be able to come through in X amount of time, and saying, look, let's speak in 12 months. I'll put it in my calendar. We'll have that invite there. If realistically someone's come through, they've not interviewed well, it's just, again, it's setting their expectations, thanking them so much for their time, reminding them about the careers website, and letting them know that they are free to be in touch. You know, it doesn't have to be us always reaching out to them, but
Mm-hmm.
setting that expectation and just saying, look, thank you so much for your time. Like, for whatever reason, it's not been successful, but you know, we're always posting through LinkedIn. We're always posting through our careers page. And if you see something in there that fits your profile in the next 12 months,
Mm-hmm.
then reach out. Feel free, let me know. I'm still here to help. But just setting that expectation more, that it's back onto them to come to you, I think really does help in terms of that experience, and it keeps the communication line open whilst not taking all your time up.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I think what we're seeing a lot of organizations do is build talent pipelines, right? So everything Pete has said there makes a lot of sense. I think that the way that this is feasible for organizations of different sizes and scales is just to try and automate as much of this activity as possible. So if we split those cohorts into two halves, right, you're obviously, as Peter said, going to have examples of candidates who didn't perform well through the interview cycle, their application wasn't particularly impressive, and they're not people that you particularly want to engage with again. Those people should have a great experience. They should be said by in a polite and concise fashion, and they should be kind of communicated with, and that should be the end of the matter. I think what we do see a lot of organizations do, though, is try and work hard to keep their silver medalists engaged, i.e., you know, you've interviewed me and Peter's better, you're going to hire him, but I might be a consideration for a future opportunity. We're going to put me in a talent pipeline, and your applicant tracking system might do this, or you might have some recruitment marketing solution to do this if you're without an ATS, but you should fundamentally be able to flag people, put them in your talent pipeline, and you can get super specific and super clever with this. I think best practice here that's achievable, though, is configure your ATS to make those individuals aware of relevant roles that are created 6 months, 12 months, 18 months after their original application process. And also think about what you can be doing from an ongoing employer branding and marketing perspective, right? So you don't need to do this specifically for every role, but even a monthly or sort of quarterly communication with that talent pipeline to keep them abreast of how the business is doing, any exciting new activity that might be relevant, and anything that's kind of topical about your culture or things that typically draw people to your organization. Your talent pipeline should help you do this. And so think about how you can be building that up, and think about how you can be managing that.
Yeah, just to build on that, because you made such a great point there, in terms of the silver bullet candidates. For me, something that I would do would be make sure that I know where they are collectively, and just every month or every couple of months, just ping out a newsletter about things that we're doing in Google, reminding them the careers page, or even just having that phone call every 2-3 months, but just keeping them interactive. Especially silver bullet candidates, so hard to find someone that's just on the cusp.
Yep.
Yeah, interaction there is so important. You were bang on.
Sure. I think the other thing that we're seeing lots of, so we'll just take 2 more questions because I'm conscious of time and appreciate everybody's busy. I think what we're seeing a lot of comments and commentary about is sort of what the actual application process should look like, right? So I think there's obviously lots of sources of applicants. Some people are using recruiters, some are heavy on referrals, which is a great channel. Lots of people are applying direct though, either through a job board, directly through an ATS or otherwise, and people are asking questions about sort of how to improve the efficiency of that process. And I think what we see in the market is quite a lot of antiquity in that approach. And what I mean by that is, Pete has done a great job over the past sort of 45 minutes explaining to us all why we should be respectful of candidates' time, why we should give them the information they want before they want it, why we should be cognizant of making sure that every touch point with our employer brand is top notch. And I think what we see a lot of is candidate experiences and application processes full of friction. And what I mean by that is if it takes me 25 minutes to apply for your job, I'm not going to apply for your job in terms of filling in a form, right? If you ask me to upload my CV and then regurgitate every aspect of my CV back out again, I'm not going to apply for your job. If you need me to sign up for an account and validate that account and send you a text message and send you my passport in the post, I'm not going to apply for your job, right? You need to get out of the way of your candidates and do as much of this heavy lifting for them as you can. And when I say this, I don't mean invest in hundreds of recruiters to manually go find this information out. I just mean use technology to make this process simpler for candidates. So really think about your application journey. I mean, we've got a lot of data that says if it takes more than 5 minutes to submit an application for your job, you'll lose about 10% of your candidate volume every minute. Now, that won't be true of Google because it's Google and Google is awesome and Google has people like Peter there to help solve some of those challenges, but you're likely not Google and we aren't Google here at Pinpoint. And so be aware of that and be cognizant of the fact that it's a very competitive market and top tier candidates won't go through poor processes. I think the other things you can be doing in terms of quick wins, Peter talked a lot through his presentation about how they'll jump on a call with every candidate that's kind of approaching an interview and do interview prep and answer their questions. For a lot of you, that won't be achievable, right? That you don't have the scale to support that, you don't have the budget, you don't have the headcount to support that. What I'd say is understand what questions your candidates are actually asking you. So we see a lot of candidates wanting to know, who am I going to be talking to through the recruitment process, right? Especially now we're seeing a lot of remote and video interviewing. People want to understand more about the team they're going to be talking to and what that recruitment journey looks like. And they also want to understand, and as Peter said, like expectation management. How many hoops am I going to have to jump through to apply for your job? What does that process look like? How long is it likely to take? What prep should I be doing? There's no reason those can't just be pieces of information that sit aside your job description or somewhere on your careers site that candidates can digest in and of their own time. Like these are all important things, and it's just table stakes now to give candidates this information up front. So make sure you're doing that. Make sure you're understanding what candidates want to know about you guys, and make sure you're answering those questions. I think Deborah's just asked a question about candidate surveys, and are they only measuring your recruitment team or the wider interviewing process, interviewers as well, and things like that? What are you doing on that?
Yeah, so it measures individual recruiters. So it doesn't just measure the whole recruitment team; it measures individual recruiters, and then it's a collective in terms of team and the wider group. What they have is the also opportunity to write any feedback on interviewers. So they have the quantitative and the qualitative side. And so they can put their positive, if they are happy or unhappy or middle with the ground in terms of the interview, and then they have the qualitative side. And that's where we're able to get feedback through for interviewers as well.
Awesome. So the last thing I'll say, just very conscious of time, I think the other theme that we saw a lot in the questions that came through sort of pre-webinar were focusing on how to deal with huge applicant volumes, right? How can you continue to offer an exceptional candidate experience, or how can you start offering an exceptional candidate experience when you're inundated with candidate and applicant volume? You know, how do you manage? And I think we have a webinar coming up here at Pinpoint with the team at My Interview and the team at Sabio, talking all about how to handle this at scale, and tools and tricks and processes you can put in place to allow you to do this well. So please look out for that on our website, and we'll include links to that in the follow-ups for this correspondence if you want to dig deeper into that topic specifically. I think the one thing I'll say now on that is think about screening, right? So it's very, very, very difficult to offer a world-class candidate experience to everybody when you're having hundreds or thousands of applicants for a role. Think about how you can use automation, how you can use knockout questions, how you can use pre-screening and tools to get rid of as many applicants from that funnel as possible in a concise but pleasant way. Make sure you're communicating with them so that you're not spending hours on every candidate. You're shortlisting what might be 500 candidates to 20, and then you can invest time properly on those candidates. So I think a lot of people try and give everybody a unilateral approach. It doesn't work, it doesn't scale, it's not practical. Think about how you can kind of positively but quickly screen out irrelevant folks and invest that time that you've saved in making the candidate experience world class for those that you do want to engage with. And so, as I say, there'll be more follow up there in our sort of subsequent webinar. I think in terms of follow up on this webinar, I just want to say thank you so much to Peter for giving up his time to talk us through all those lessons we've learned today. Thank you all for attending and registering. You'll get a follow-up email very shortly that'll have a copy of both Peter's presentation and the one that we skipped through today, as well as an end-to-end candidate experience checklist for your own business and a bunch of other useful online resources, all of which are kind of free to consume. So thank you so much for attending today. Thanks again, Peter, and yeah, look forward to talking to you all again soon.
Thanks, Tom.